Hi and welcome back to Peaky Boardgamer. My name is Ektorakos and today I will teach you how you can play the game Saltfjord. This game is a re-implementation of the game Santa Maria published back in 2017 by the same designers. Feel free to write in the comments which of the two games you prefer and why. Let's move to the table and see how the game is played. In Saltfjord we're traveling north to a Norwegian fjord. In the game, players gather resources to develop their small Norwegian village with tiles. These tiles depict building squares that can be activated to trigger actions and bonuses. By using dice from the board, players will activate the corresponding row or column of their village, activating buildings and performing various actions. Actions like to further develop their village, to go fishing and find various resources, to advance on technology tracks and gain permanent abilities, or complete orders to gain victory points. The game lasts for 3 rounds and after scoring, the player with the most points will be the winner in Saltfjord. At first, place the board in the middle of the table and create a supply with the resource cubes. Separate fishing tokens per type. There are 3 types, type 1, 2 and 3. After you shuffle each type separately, place the indicated number of tokens on the spaces on the board. So in this space, I will place 8 type 1 tokens and so on. All tokens are stacked facing downwards. Yellow spaces on the board are for ability tiles. Shuffle them together and place 4 of them face up on the spaces. Remaining tiles are set aside for now. Purple spaces are for scoring tiles. Shuffle them together, place 4 of them on these spaces and remove the rest from the game. Next, use 3 white dice and 1 orange die per player in the game. In this video I'm setting up for 3 players, so I will use 9 white and 3 orange dice. After you roll all dice together, you place all dice in these boxes according to each dice value. In our example, dice should be placed like that. Next, using orange dice, cover spaces of this area based on your player count. Cover all spaces beneath and to the left of the illustration depicting your player count. You don't have to roll these dice. Next, take the building tiles and after you set aside starting tiles, sort them out based on the shape and shuffle them separately. For each shape, there are corresponding spaces on the board which also depict the number of building tiles that should be placed. Tiles are stacked on these spaces facing upwards. These are small buildings and these here are large buildings. On each of these spaces depicting a worker on the technology track, place workers equal to your player count. So I will place 3 workers here and here. Finally, take the crate tiles and set aside the 4 starting tiles with the orange background. Shuffle the tiles and fill these 4 areas with 11 tiles each, stacked facing downwards. Then take the 4 starting tiles and randomly place 1 on top of each stack facing upwards. Moving now to player setup. Each player takes a random player board and a storage board. Player boards are double-sided and all players must play with the same side. I will use this side, which is the recommended side for your first games. Players take 1 boat tile, which is also double-sided. Use the side depicting 3 slots. Each player takes 1 worker, which is placed here, and all components of 1 of the colors. Ships are placed here on the board. Technology markers are placed in the bottom space of each track. Place 1 wooden marker on space 0 of the scoring track and the other next to the tavern area. Remaining workers and player components are placed back in the box. Before you start the game, take the starting building tiles and the remaining ability tiles that were set aside earlier, as well as these 4 starting resource tiles, and create sets that consist of 1 random component of each type. You create 4 sets regardless the number of players. Now, after you determine a starting player, in counterclockwise order, starting with the last player, each player selects 1 of these sets. The ability tile is placed next to the player's board and corresponds to a special ability that can be used from the player for the entire game. The building tile must be immediately placed in the grid of the player's board. The tile must be placed so that it covers 2 of the 4 central squares. The resource tile grants some starting resources for the player. There are several resources in the game, all depicted in the player's storage board. During the game, players gain and spend resources by using these resource cubes. When you gain a resource, you place one cube in the area corresponding to the resource you gain. When you spend resources, you must return cubes from corresponding spaces. According to this starting resource tile, I must place a cube in the gold, grain and fish areas. The pictogram of this tile means that the player performs the Go Fishing action as a starting bonus. I will explain this action later, but know now that what this means for setup is that the player advances their boat marker to the next fjord area, takes the top type 1 fishing tile and places it face up on a slot of their boat. The game is now ready to start. A short interruption here simply to remind you that if you haven't done already, please subscribe to our channel. It will help the channel grow and enable us to bring more videos of your favorite board games. The game is played in 3 rounds. On each round, players alternate turns starting with the first player and continuing clockwise. On their turn, players must choose one of 3 options. Option 1 is to take a die. Option 2 is to build a large building. Option 3 is to retire. I will explain each option in detail, but know in advance that after you retire, you are out of the round. Remaining players continue to take turns and the round will end when all players have retired. With this option, you start by taking any of the available dice on the board and then place it on your player board to activate buildings. You can also take a die and instead of activating buildings, you can discard it to gain 1 fish. When you take a die, you must take into account 2 simple rules. Rule 1 is you cannot take more than 3 white dice in a round. Rule 2 is you cannot take more orange dice than the number of the round. In general, all dice available at the beginning of the round, white and orange, will be equally split among players during the round. Your player board consists of columns and rows, one for each value of a die. After you take the die, you trigger the column or the row corresponding to the value of the die. White dice trigger columns, while orange dice trigger rows. Also, if you have fish in your stock, you can use them to alter the value of the die by plus or minus 1 for each fish you use. Important! Values do not wrap around, meaning that in order to turn a 1 into a 6, you need to spend 5 fish, not 1. After you trigger the appropriate column, now this column, you may activate building icons in order from top to bottom or left to right in case of a row activation, skipping all buildings that have a die or a worker on them. We will see how these are placed on buildings in a bit. Building icons are all these pictograms that have a colored background. The rest are boardwalk bonuses that are not triggered now. You don't have to activate all of them, and you may also skip the effects of buildings you do activate. Important, when you are done with activations and their effects, you must place the die on the last building you activated. With my 4 die, I trigger this column on my board. There are no dice on any of the 3 building icons, so I may activate all of them. I have to activate them in order from top to bottom, so I activate the first one and perform its effects, then I also activate the second one and choose not to trigger its effect for some reason, and then I stop and don't activate the last building. The die will then be placed on this building as it was the last activated building. If I later trigger the same column with another 4 value die, this building with a die will not be activated. Let's explain the various building effects. Buildings with a yellow background simply grant you the depicted resources. With this effect, you upgrade one of your resources. When you upgrade, you move one resource cube to another resource by following the arrows. Gold cannot be further upgraded. Buildings with a red background trigger a specific action, and if there is a slash, player must choose one of the actions. With this action, you spend the resources depicted on one of the face-up crate tiles and then pick the tile to place it next to your storage board. Next to each crate tile stack there is a pier symbol. You take the tile and then place it facing downwards next to the corresponding pier on your board. Points depicted on the tiles are awarded at the end of the game. Finally, you flip the next crate tile facing upwards. Another action is to gain technology. On the board there are 4 technology tracks and you have a marker to indicate your current position on the track. With this action you select one of the tracks and advance your marker to the next level by paying the indicated resources depicted between the 2 levels. Then you trigger the bonuses or effects of the next level. So, if I spend 1 grain, I advance to this level and gain 1 wood, 1 fish and 1 paper. When you reach the last space of the track, then in addition, you trigger the effect of the scoring tile. I will analyze technology effects and scoring tiles later on. Another action is to build a small building tile. The cost is 1 wood and then you select the top tile of any small building stack and place it on your player board. You can place it anywhere within the grid, but you cannot cover another tile or a building icon printed on the board. If the tile adds new buildings to the column or row currently being activated, you may trigger them. So, if I am currently performing this building action and build this tile here, then I may activate this building. But if I place it here, I cannot activate it because the building is before the one currently being activated, following the top to bottom order. Important: if your placement completes rows or columns, you immediately gain all boardwalk bonuses in these rows and columns. Example: if I place this tile here, I complete both a row and a column. All bonuses shown on the graphics will be awarded immediately. Make note that the one on the intersection will be awarded twice, once for the column and once for the row. The 4th action is go fishing. With this action you either advance your boat to the next fjord area or return it home. If you advance, you take the top type 1 fishing token from the area, if available, and place it on a vacant space of your boat. If there is no vacant space, you can discard any one you have to make space for the new one. You can even discard the one you just got. The discarded token is then moved to the bottom of the corresponding stack of your area. So if I discarded this type 2 token, I would place it in the bottom of this stack. If you choose to return home, you gain the victory points indicated next to your current area, move the ship back to the start, and gain all bonuses from the fishing tokens on your boat. These are resources and victory points. You empty your boat and keep the tokens next to your play area. Instead of taking a die, you can build a large building tile. The cost is 1 wood and 1 plank. Then you take any large building from the top of any stack and place it on your board. The placement rules are exactly the same. Important: you cannot select a small building with this action, even if you pay the higher cost for a large tile. When you retire, you place your tavern marker to a vacant tavern space and trigger its effect. Here you go fishing. Here you gain a technology. Here you complete an order. Here you build a 1 square building tile without paying the cost, and with this one you go fishing twice. With each action you may select either to advance or return your boat home. After you are done with the tavern action, you go to your piers and activate each one of them times equal to your crate tokens next to them. The top one is to go fishing. In my example I have 3 tokens, so I will perform the go fishing action 3 times. The second is to gain 1 point and 1 fish. I have no token here, so I gain nothing. The third one is to upgrade a resource or gain 1 fish. I have 3 tiles here, so I could, for example, upgrade 2 resources and gain 1 fish. With the last one, you either spend 1 grain to gain 3 points or spend 1 food to gain 5 points. I have 2 tiles. I choose to spend 1 grain and 1 food to gain 8 points. At any time during your turn, you may also use free actions even when you take the retire turn. These are depicted on your boards and you can use any of them, even all, and any number of times. You may always sell your resources to get fish as depicted on the resources row. So if I sell my gold, I gain 3 fish, and if I sell 1 paper, I gain 1 fish. The next one is that you may always spend 2 fish to upgrade a resource. Also, you may always downgrade your resources to the resource below, again by following arrows. This literally means that gold resource is a wild resource as it can be downgraded into anything. Finally, you may use workers if you have them available here. You use workers by placing them on any vacant building on your grid, not blocked by a die or another worker. After you place the worker, you perform the effect of the building. When all players retire, the round ends. If that was the third round, you proceed to final scoring. Otherwise, you proceed to the next round after you perform the next steps. Players move their workers back into this area so they can be reused next round, and also return their dice back to the common supply. Then take all orange dice from this area placed to the right of the next round illustration. Here I'm starting the second round, so I will take all of these dice. Add these dice to the dice used in the previous round, roll them all together and place them to areas corresponding to their value. The player whose tavern marker was placed more to the left than other markers will be the starting player for the next round. Reset all tavern markers and start the next round. Before explaining scoring, let's check the effects of the technology tracks. In the first technology, level 1 grants you a gold resource, levels 2 and 3 give you your second and third worker. The first level of the second technology upgrades your boat. You flip it to the other side and now you have 4 slots instead of 3. If you had some tokens in your boat when you upgrade, these are transferred to the other side on any slots. The pictogram next to this slot means that if you slot a token that awards victory points, these points will be doubled when you return home. The second level awards you one of the ability tiles on the board. You place this tile next to your other ability tile and you can use it for the rest of the game. For example, with this ability tile you can pay 1 fish to change your die into any value, not just by 1 pip. With this one, you can use white dice to also activate rows and orange dice to activate columns. Pause the video now to check all ability tiles. The third level also awards you with a permanent ability as indicated by this pictogram. From now on, you get a discount of 1 wood when you build, so a small building now costs nothing and the large building only costs 1 plank. The first level of the third technology grants you resources. The other 2 grant permanent abilities. With this one, whenever you complete an order, you also immediately trigger the effect of the pier once. With this, again when you complete an order, the crate tile can be placed next to any pier and not only the one that matches the origin of the tile. For the last track there are 3 permanent abilities. With this one, when you go fishing and advance your boat, you look on the top 2 tokens of the stack and choose 1 to keep and 1 to discard to the bottom of the stack. The other 2 levels unlock Type 2 and Type 3 tokens when you go fishing, which are more valuable. As we said earlier, reaching the third level of technology track unlocks for you the effect of the scoring tile. This will award you victory points based on goals in final scoring. For example, if you reach this one, then you will gain 2 victory points for each lobster fishing token you collected during the game. Exception: if the tile has this lightning symbol, it is triggered immediately when you reach the third level of the technology. For example, with this one, as soon as you reach the third level, you can sell up to 5 fish resources for 3 victory points each. Pause the video now to check all scoring tile effects. In scoring, players first gain resources and victory points from fishing tokens on their boat. Then you convert all resources into fish by selling them and you gain 1 victory point for every 3 fish in your supply. Next, you gain 3 victory points for every full column of 4 crate tiles next to your piers. Here I have 2 full columns and gain 6 points. Then you flip all crates and score victory points depicted on them. Then, for each of your technology markers, you score victory points based on their level as indicated to the right. For the third level, points come from the scoring tile. Here the red player has reached the third level in these 2 tracks, but this scoring tile was scored immediately during the game. From the other tile, the red and the blue player will score 1 victory point for every fishing token collected during the game. I have 12 and I will score 12 victory points. The player with the most points wins. In case of a tie, the tied player whose tavern marker is further to the left wins the tie. After you get more experienced, you can play including wagons. If you play with wagons, then during setup replace this technology track with this one and place 1 wagon per player on this level. Also, each player starts with a wagon which they place on the top left square of their grid. During the game, if you activate a column or row that has wagons, you first move the wagons before you start activating buildings. If you activated a column, the wagon must move 1 space to the right or left. If you activated a row, then the wagon must move up or down by 1 space. Again, the wagon cannot move on a space that has a die, a worker or another wagon. If the wagon moved to a square with a building, then you immediately activate that building. If you did not move the wagon and was located on a building, then you trigger that building. After you complete wagon effects, then you start activating buildings for your die placement. Make note that wagons act as a block for activation just like workers or dice. When you build a building tile, you can place it on spaces where wagons are located, transferring the wagon on the tile. When you complete a row or column, you still get boardwalk bonuses even if the wagon is on top. After you reach the first level of the new technology track, your wagons start to trigger also boardwalk bonuses as they move on them. With the second level, you gain your second wagon, which must be placed in the top left square of your grid without activating, of course. If that space is blocked with a die or a worker, then you set the wagon aside until the block is removed. In the third level, you immediately move both your wagons 1 space towards any orthogonal direction and activate buildings and trigger boardwalk bonuses. In scoring, for each of your wagons, you multiply the column and row of their location and gain that amount of points. And that's how you can play the game Saltfjord. If you like our videos and want to see more, please subscribe to our channel. Until next time, have fun and play more board games.